Hey everybody, it's Brian Koshley with AVRP Studios. We're having a conversation today about what it's like to work remote and to have that conversation from the working perspective. And so my role being principal and chief marketing and business development officer, I thought it'd be interesting to hear from someone more on the project level. And so with us today is Sean Cahalin with AVRP Studios.
Hi, I'm Sean Cahalin. I'm an architect at AVRP. I started in the middle of the pandemic and I've been there for just about 9 months now.
So tell us a little bit about that. You've obviously found yourself in the marketplace looking for an opportunity without the ability to meet someone at a restaurant or meet somebody for coffee. So how was it that us as an organization reached out to you or even identified you?
So I was let go of at my previous company when they went through a round of layoffs due to work slowing down the beginning of lockdown and quarantine and all that. And I got lucky. One of my former coworkers, actually, we were working on a project at the last office. When I got let go, she emailed me, told me that she was close with Chris, one of the principals at AVRP, and said you guys were looking to hire. Would I mind if she forwarded my info over to you guys? And I said, sure. I didn't want to be unemployed, so that was great. So she forwarded it over to Chris. I think you guys contacted me a week later. I had a phone interview with Chris maybe 3 days later, and I think I was unemployed for all of 3 weeks. I barely had time to put paperwork in to get unemployment.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You didn't have to sit around collecting pandemic checks for a year.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you got the offer. Obviously, you're not doing the typical 50 hours a week in the office. What was it like when you started out from the standpoint of being onboarded to the organization? How did you get exposed to who AVRP was as a culture?
Yeah, that's been strange and like sort of piecemeal. It's been, I got introduced to Chris. He introduced me to, I think, Anna and some of the HR team, and then slowly got onboarded. Instead of getting a packet of paper and an office tour, I was just basically like, here's how you'll sign on to your remote workstation through your laptop. Here's all your employee stuff if you could sign and send back to us. And then just got put on a project team and then had to slowly meet that project team. And every time I'm added to a new project, it's meeting more and more people in the office, actually. So it's been a different process, for sure.
We were joking before the start of this conversation that you've been with us for 6 to 9 months now, and I just today was able to ask you how to pronounce your last name because you don't get to meet someone face to face and have them introduce themselves, and so you see this name on the screen, you have no idea how you're supposed to pronounce that.
Exactly. I met when I started working with Zane, actually, I hadn't seen his face in the video meetings on Mondays with the whole office. And then I was going into the office to meet him before a meeting. So I looked at his face on our website. And then I had to check with Danica that it was him in the office because he looks nothing like that picture.
And for anyone who's interested, if you go to our website and take a look at the list of employees, you'll see a dark-haired, fit young man named Zane Eli, who now has a beard that rivals, it's way past mine. Yeah. He's like Father Time. We joked that he was,
but it's still much longer. Yeah.
Yeah, we joked that he was Santa Claus, and then after the holidays, he became Father Time, and his hair went white, his beard, is massive, and he, when I talk to him, he says he's got no plans on hacking it back anytime soon. So he's the Grizzly Adams of the office now.
Yeah. So that was the first one of being like, that's Zane, right? Like that person who looks like this, and she was like, yeah, don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I could completely understand that. Actually, it was so funny. He and I are working together on several projects. I went over to his desk today and took a selfie and sent it to him like, hey, where are you, man? I'm sitting at your desk. So from a technology standpoint, what was provided to you? Kind of describe how you, on a day-to-day basis as an architect with the organization, are using technology to produce drawings and work on projects.
Yeah, so I just remote into my desktop station at work through my laptop. When lockdown had started in my previous firm, I'd been given a laptop. I was actually one of the first people sent home because my wife was in contact, well, had been at work with one of her coworkers who went home sick like 2 weeks before I think the California lockdown started. So she was like, I don't feel well. She told my wife's office. My wife told me, and then I told HR at my previous office, and they're like, you have to go home. Here's the laptop. Get out of here. And then a week later, everyone else went home. So I actually lucked into a laptop at that office. But now I'm working off my own laptop. We bought a screen for myself and a screen for my wife. So we both have added screens. I have an extra keyboard, so I don't have to be hunched over the laptop keyboard. But yeah, just remote into that desktop. The only hitch is meetings. Like meetings like this, I wind up emailing myself the link to my personal email so I can run it off of my personal laptop and have the speaker and mic work properly. Otherwise, it tries to use the office computer. And then that's sort of like, I can call in, but that's a pain. And there's a bit of a lag between the video. So it's just easier to run it off of my personal Gmail account.
Gotcha. It is a little surreal when you're in the office and you walk around and everybody's screens are lit and you can see them working on projects, but nobody is sitting at their desk.
Yeah, I didn't know that was how it worked the first couple of weeks until I had come into the office once and I saw that. I was like, oh, I unchecked that box so people don't have to see that if they're like in there, and just it is really distracting, especially when the one next to you is doing it. Like
it's kind of freaky. You're like, man, did like, the ghosts in the machine now, or all of a sudden, I'm in the office and something's happening, but I can't see anybody.
Yeah. And then you have you're like, why are they doing it that way? And you can't even tell the person.
Why are they on Amazon right now? So
browser.
That's right. So we're having this conversation. I can see bookshelves in the background. I can see what I think is a crib in the background. What, you and your wife are both working remote. So what's your home office environment like?
This is now our third. When we first got sent home, we were just working at the dining room table. I was like, oh, this probably won't be too bad. Couple weeks, maybe a month, we'll be okay. That got longer. We then had a small desk. I set that up in a corner when we had our laptop and we were still in the dining room. And now we've, fully transitioned. We have 2 full-size desks next to each other, like, 10 feet long of tables. We've moved it into the back room. That was our extra room. And yeah, we have one crib. There's another, our guest bed behind us. It's actually now just our second bedroom. We found out right before lockdown that my wife was pregnant. And then I think the week before lockdown, we found out that it was twins.
Oh, wow.
So they were born in September. They're now here. We let them sleep separately so they don't wake each other up. So we have one crib in our bedroom, one crib back here. And most nights one of us is back here, one of us is in the bedroom, and we split.
See, I was going to ask, even though it was completely unrelated to this, which baby gets to win the lottery of being in the room with the two of you, but now you answered that question. You guys lost the lottery in that you both have to sleep in separate rooms.
Yeah. They're 5 months now, and you can start sleep training them. So
right.
We're going to do that, and hopefully we can move them into the same room with our other daughter, who's 23 months. And then we'll have 3 babies basically sleeping in the same room that we can.
So there is nothing going on in your house.
No, it's
you got one under 2 years, and then you got twins.
Yeah.
That's nice. How in the world is it so quiet right now?
It's been pretty hectic. I never thought I'd look forward to Monday mornings as much as I do when they go.
Yeah. Do you come into the office?
I've come into the office a couple times to work with Doug on a project before, to meet with Zane about a couple things before we head off to meetings to clients for the one project that is still doing in-person meetings. I haven't really spent much time in the office working. I am looking forward to being back in an office because working with Doug was almost required to just be together in an early schematic, phase. You're trying to sketch things out, work digitally. There are tools that do it, but they're still not as easy as just being there, drawing on a piece of paper with each other.
So expand on that a little bit, because I find that interesting. So obviously our profession, architecture and design, we're a highly collaborative environment, but and there's been a lot of discussions out in the marketplace about what the future of office and workplace will be like, and will people return back to work, or will they embrace kind of this new remote work mentality? You're looking forward to being back in a physical office.
Yeah, along with the sort of required adjacencies of working together and sketching and making models and those types of things, I'm also mostly an extrovert. So being around people, I enjoy. I love being here with my wife, but every day, 5 days a week, now over a year, it's like we live the same life. We know what each other's going to talk about.
Yep.
So it would be nice to see some new faces. If that goes back to every other day, I think that would be like my perfect situation. Every other day in the office, every other day at home. That'd be good.
My wife and I both, I'm still primarily working remote, and my wife went through a couple months where she was 100% remote. She's now gone the opposite, where she's in the office 4 out of 5 days. And it's so I totally empathize with you, where it got to the point where we were just, on top of each other, both of us trying to do business, and then at the same time, having to cohabitate on a much more regular basis. And so now, God, if she ever sees this video, I'm going to be in such trouble. But the one day that she comes home on a Friday, I'm like, oh, it's my day again. I'm supposed to be working, and now Wendy's here too. And, in my situation, she got the home office. I took over what was supposed to be just one seat at the kitchen table that turned into 2, that turned into the half of the kitchen table. Over the weekend, we had the kids over for dinner, and I literally had to schlep the entire kitchen table onto a pile, because slowly but surely your workplace grows, and the next thing you know, you've just taken over everything. So
yeah,
really crazy.
We're making it work with eventually getting desks from IKEA after they were not sold out and impossible to get.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it was like everyone needed desks, filing, office chairs, monitors. That first month was crazy. No,
it was. We got a sit stand for Wendy, and as I mentioned, I'm still sitting at the kitchen table. I did finally get a desk chair to sit at the kitchen table with, but for a long time, literally was sitting in a dining chair. And in the world of workplace, where I'm supposed to be the proponent of ergonomics and sit stand and move around, and thank goodness that my phone tells me that I need to get up and walk, because man, you sit down in a Jerome's factory dining room chair for 8 hours, you pay the price.
Yeah, we had when we first came home, we have they're knockoffs, but they're Eames chairs, like the dining chairs, no arms or anything, and you're like, these are great for eating dinner in, and I like the way they look, but 8 hours a day in them when you're trying to work is just like it's not happening. My last office, I told them, I was like, can I get my office chair? I don't really do that, but I guess. So they let me take my office chair home. Since then, we've gotten chairs, I don't. But
I picked up a couple of chairs, one for my wife and one for myself. But one of the first COVID experiences was Doug coming into the office and me wheeling a chair out of the office.
Yeah.
I checked in with Chris and said, hey man, I need to get an office chair for the house, so I'm just gonna grab one from the office. And you can see this look on Doug's face, like, were you taking that? So, but hey, how you doing? Don't mind me taking this office chair home. So interesting. You're looking forward to coming back, and I like your perspective on every other day. For those listening in or watching, we've had a lot of internal conversations within what we like to call the hashtag AVRP family about what that schedule is going to be, whether it's going to be a 3-2 or alternate work weeks, so that we can return to work and still have social distancing that that works for everyone. And Sean, I don't know, this might have been before we actually got you on board, but we did a survey early on, an electronic survey of just what the colleagues' perspective was on returning to work. And it was a 30-30-30 split. We had 30% of those of us that were like, I'd come back tomorrow. I do not want to work remote. We had about 30% that said, I've got an elderly parent, a young child or children. I'm not comfortable coming back unless there are proper safeguards in place. And even then, unless childcare or school or elder care starts back up, I'm kind of, having to balance my home life with my work life. And then we had about 30% that were like, yeah, I could work remote 100% and not walk back into the office. And my experience has kind of been all over the map, where early on I was coming in several days a week, had made the commitment that we wanted to have a principal in the office every day if possible. So if someone had a question, that they could actually come have a face-to-face conversation. And I joked with you before we started this session that I sat down at my desk today, which is middle of February, and the yellow notepad on my desk was 12/22 was when I had taken the last notes. And with this last surge, it was like, let's be 100% remote. And in my role of bringing work in the door and then shepherding work through the course of the project, all of the projects that I'm involved with are doing Zoom meetings. They're completely remote, and it's been very interesting to see technology enter traditional avenues of our business, where construction, that the architect has to be on site, the architect has to walk the job, and now to see contractors essentially doing video walkthroughs or 360 still capture walkthroughs, where you can do a job walk because they walked the job a day before and took a ton of photographs and have the Wi-Fi infrastructure up on the job site to be able to see what's going on. So it's as Chris and I have talked a lot about, what changes will be systemic, will stay with us as a society and as a profession in particular, and what changes will fall by the wayside. I really do think that without trying to minimalize what the pandemic has been, with the loss of life and people losing their jobs, and you add to that the contentious election and the social justice movement, nevertheless, the pandemic really has pushed a lot of technological advances into the mainstream. I mean, who knew about Zoom pre-COVID? It was go to my PC, or it was, any number of kind of meeting events. And now when someone sends me a meeting invite and it's not Zoom, I'm like, oh, really? I want to have the cool background. I want to have the weird glasses on. And it's, you want to do Microsoft Teams? Oh, that's going to suck. Yeah. So any kind of final thoughts about, as the pandemic hopefully starting to wind down, and what your experience has been like, and maybe some of the things that you are looking forward to if there is a certain return to normal?
I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, especially with being back in the office, is being able to ask an easy question that doesn't seem either super important, or that I have to phrase and apologize for at the beginning of an email. I've been emailing Chris a lot because he was my first point of contact. So when I have a question that's just I would normally ask the person next to me, who do I talk to about this? Now I just email Chris because he was the first person, and I'm just hey, I wrote a little Dynamo definition to just capitalize all the views on a project I was working on. I wasn't diligent at the beginning, and some of them were lowercase, some of them were title, some of them were uppercase, and I was they all need to be uppercase. I just wrote it. It takes 2 minutes, but then I was these are the types of things that wind up being useful for people in the day. And I've been in charge of starting and sort of proselytizing for computational design tools at previous offices, and things like that are always a nice little foot in the door for people to sort of understand how it works, see how it can help them throughout their day. So I was hey, Chris, who would I send this to? Is there people that, is there an email list of people in the office that are, doing the Revit work that would benefit from seeing this? And he's all right, you send it to this person, And then that person showed me the email list. So eventually I like found that list, but I was like, there's just an extra step in there that being in the office would sort of clear up.
Yeah, that's a great example. It's, just so you know, I've been here 3.5 years. I'm still doing that.
Yeah.
Still asking Chris and others, who do I send this to and where does that go?
That and having someone who's sort of like one step above me that I know I can always ask the question of like, how do I do this thing or what do I do next, as a sort of mentor in the office. That person's been hard to find. Paul has been really great working with him on the Red Door project. And he's always ready to answer any questions, but it's hard to have that sort of personal connection with that person to know, to feel a little more comfortable of him being that person of like, oh yeah, I know Paul, I can always ask Paul that question.
Right.
Whereas I'll ask him, I'm like, hey, there's a bit more like explaining and not like apologizing for, but like sort of intro in those questions.
Right.
Whereas in the office, you'd sort of have a closer relationship and you'd be like, hey, what do I do for this?
Yeah.
You'd sort of know what project you're working on, or, that person would know what you're working on. So.
No, I can totally see that. I walked in today, like I said, it's been over a month since I've been in the office and wishing people Happy New Year. And it's the middle of February because it's the first time I've seen Michael face to face, or the first time I've seen Julie face to face.
Yeah.
Although this is the actual background, but I also early on in the pandemic took a screenshot of this background. So there are days where I'm on a virtual Zoom call with this background and Julie will pop her head over like, is he in the office today? Or Anna comes running over because she thinks I'm in the office, and then they realize it's a virtual backdrop. Yeah, and it's been interesting, from my perspective, people have asked me, has been harder to collaborate, or has been harder to produce quality product. And I think for us, one of the things that it really did as an organization is it forced more structure. There are way more project meetings on a regular basis now than there ever were when I was sitting in the office, quite simply, I think, because you can't get up and go walk over to Paul and go, what section of the IBC again allows me to do X, Y, Z, and so you set up these we win a new project, we bring a new client in the door, and immediately you're setting up these internal meetings that are going to happen regularly to be able to coordinate all that information of where the files are stored and what that kind of formal communication process is going to be. And I feel for us, it's definitely, I can see in the quality of the communication and the quality of the work product that's going out that it has helped us sharpen our skills. And yet at the same time, it's like, I wonder why, so we're doing this interview, my desk phone rang. And every once in a while, it's, thank goodness we've got voice over IP. The email pops up on my screen that says I had a call. And I'm like, who in the heck would be calling me at my desk?
Yeah.
Everybody has my cell phone number. Everybody can text me. They can email me. Why would somebody call me and leave me a voicemail at my desk, knowing that, in Southern California, and in California in particular, that it's a remote environment. So it'll be very interesting, I think, going forward to see what sticks and what falls by the wayside, and what technology really becomes entrenched in how we do business, and what was just kind of a fad of the time. So,
yeah.
Any last thoughts?
No, I think that's it for me.
Tapped you out. Good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you for taking the time. I know it took us a while with both of our schedules to get this booked, but I thought this was really helpful, and hopefully those folks that listen or view in will find an interesting perspective on how we as an organization have worked remote. And congratulations on the twins. I knew you guys had a baby. I didn't realize they had twins. That's fantastic. All right.
Been a while.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't know how to stop recording now that we're done. Well, maybe that pause button.